I can't pre-commit or say, yes, I'm going in with some agenda, because I'm not.
Supreme Court nominee Amy Coney Barrett responding after being repeatedly questioned on Roe v. Wade. A major development in the case filed by the Diocese of Brooklyn against state restrictions on how many people can attend Mass. COVID cases on the rise in New York State and across the country. 5 states are seeing record hospitalizations. And helping those in need, a church food pantry sees a growing number of people in Brooklyn who have become food insecure since the pandemic began. The news starts right now.
If I express a view on a precedent one way or another, whether I say I love it or I hate it, it signals to litigants that I might tilt one way or another in a pending case.
Supreme Court nominee Amy Coney Barrett declining to say whether she thinks Roe v. Wade should be struck down. Good evening, I'm Christine Persichetti. The president's pick for the High Court was grilled for hours by members of the Senate Judiciary Committee. Currents News' Jessica Easthope has been following the proceedings all day and joins us now from Staten Island. Jessica.
Christine, on day 2 of Judge Amy Coney Barrett's confirmation hearing to the Supreme Court, her Catholic faith again came under question. Members of the Senate Judiciary Committee kept asking if and how her faith would impact decision-making.
Can you set aside whatever Catholic beliefs you have regarding any issue before you?
I can. I have done that in my time on the 7th Circuit. If I stay on the 7th Circuit, I'll continue to do that. If I'm confirmed to the Supreme Court, I will do that still.
Roe versus Wade, the Obergefell case legalizing same-sex marriage, and the Affordable Care Act were hot topics, all prompting Judge Barrett to say when it comes to future rulings, she has no agenda.
I have made no commitment to anyone, not in this Senate, not over at the White House, about how I would decide any case.
Judge Barrett was especially pressed on Roe versus Wade by Senators Amy Klobuchar and Dianne Feinstein.
So let me try again. Do you agree with Justice Scalia's view that Roe was wrongly decided?
Senator, I completely understand why you are asking the question, but again, I can't pre-commit or say, yes, I'm going in with some agenda, because I'm not. I don't have any agenda. I have no agenda to try to overrule Casey. I have an agenda to stick to the rule of law and decide cases as they come.
During his questioning, Senator Ted Cruz said religious liberties were among the most important issues of the upcoming presidential election. He brought up a recent Supreme Court case where they were in question, the Little Sisters of the Poor fighting for their religious right not to provide contraception coverage to employees.
The Obama administration litigated against the Little Sisters of the Poor, seeking to fine them in order to force them to pay for abortion-inducing drugs, among others. It's truly a stunning situation when you have the federal government litigating against nuns.
Judge Barrett has dealt with criticism and hard questions confidently during the first 2 days of her confirmation. On Tuesday, she revealed she wasn't using notes.
Is there anything on it?
That letterhead that says United States Senate.
That's impressive.
Judge Barrett has 2 more days of questioning by the 22-member Senate Judiciary Committee ahead of her. Christine?
Judge Barrett has been fairly poised while taking these questions, but today we heard her speak out about how excruciating this process has been for her.
Yeah, Christine, she said today that she's doing a media blackout because she knows that her persona and her Catholic faith especially has been caricatured. There was a promise that Judge Barrett would not be attacked on the basis of her faith. And today, Senator Josh Hawley, who came to her defense yesterday, said that promise was broken. So we'll have to see if Wednesday's questioning is as focused on her religious beliefs as it has been the past 2 days. Christine?
All right, thanks, Jessica. New Yorkers took to the streets Monday to protest Barrett's nomination. The rally, held in Buffalo, featured people dressed as handmaids, similar to those in the Hulu series. The costumes are in reference to a title Barrett supposedly held in the Christian group called People of Praise. Her affinity to the People of Praise has been a subject of criticism. Currents News spoke with one of her colleagues, Professor Nicole Garnett from Notre Dame, about the group.
People of Praise is an organization that grew out of the Catholic Charismatic movement and is an ecumenical group that supports one another with community and prayer. Many members of the People of Praise are members of my parish, St. Joe Parish in South Bend, Indiana, and they're wonderful people. They're giving, loving, generous. They are always helping out at the grade school, always helping out with the parish council, always lecturing, all the things that typical normal Catholic people do. They're just lovely.
Professor Garnett further said she too has had positive experiences with the People of Praise. One of her children attends a school run by the group. Now to a new development in the lawsuit filed by the Diocese of Brooklyn against COVID restrictions put in place by Governor Andrew Cuomo. The case is moving forward. There will be a new hearing this Thursday where a different judge will listen to the reasons why churches in hotspots should not have unfair restrictions placed upon them. Randy Mastro, the attorney representing the diocese, issued this statement. We look forward to presenting our case to Judge Garofis, demonstrating that the diocese has done everything right to provide a safe, COVID-free environment for worship and should therefore be permitted to reopen its churches for Mass this coming Sunday. Meanwhile, in Washington, D.C., a judge ruled in favor of a church there that sued over COVID restrictions. The Capitol Hill Baptist Church, one of D.C.'s largest, claimed the restrictions were a substantial burden on religious freedom. The church had been denied a permit for an outdoor service at RFK Stadium. In a lawsuit, it claimed the church was unfairly targeted because religious gatherings were capped at 100 people. Meanwhile, a pop-up drive-in movie theater was given the green light at the same location. Johnson & Johnson has paused its COVID vaccine clinical trial because of an unexplained illness. The drug maker says the participant is now being evaluated by an independent safety monitoring board. No other details about the illness were released. This is the second phase 3 coronavirus vaccine trial to be put on hold in the U.S. Last month, AstraZeneca's vaccine trial stopped when a volunteer in Britain had a neurological complication. In New York State, coronavirus hospitalizations are on the rise. A total of 878 people were admitted on Monday. That's up nearly 60 patients from Sunday. Governor Cuomo blames the increase on what he calls micro-clusters. The statewide infection rate is at 1.1%, but cluster zones have a combined positivity rate of 3.7%. Over 25,000 New Yorkers have died from confirmed cases of the virus, according to the state health department, and the number of COVID cases nationwide is growing.
We have a baseline of infections now that vary between 40 and 50,000 per day. That's a bad place to be when you're going into the cooler weather of the fall and the colder weather of the winter.
In September, the U.S. was averaging around 35,000 new cases a day. Right now, 33 states are reporting a rise in COVID cases, 13 with a positivity rate higher than 10%, and 5 states are seeing record hospitalizations. And as the number of cases rise, so does the need for help for so many families, including right here in the diocese. At the food pantry at St. Athanasius Church, the number of people dealing with food insecurity has grown significantly since the pandemic began. Currents News' Emily Druby has the story from Bensonhurst.
Kenny Woodzanowski has dedicated his life to helping young people connect with God, but then the pandemic started.
Youth ministry, like every other ministry, shut down during the pandemic. There was no gatherings.
So he found a new way to help people and spread the gospel.
Amen. The Lord be with you. That's when Monsignor's like, hey, Kenny, you think you could help out since obviously you're not working as much with youth ministry as you were before. So I came to help out, and literally it just started snowballing.
A food pantry at St. Athanasius. It's been around for years, but the pandemic grew their base of people from 20 to over 100.
How are we doing?
As the base grew, they knew the pantry needed to also. So braving the coronavirus, Kenny and his team went to work, finding donations, organizing the weekly pantry, really growing this community along with the church's clergy.
And it's been a tremendous success. I mean, they really work hard stocking the shelves and everything. So it's really been a blessing for the neighborhood.
Favorite part, to help people and give it to them and be happy and say thank you.
Pandemic heroes risking everything to help others because it's the Catholic thing to do.
Knowing that they're doing God's work in the community, and that it's active. It's not just an intellectual thing or a wish, but it's reality.
And while many think the pandemic might be closer to the end than the beginning, the pantry still sees a serious need.
The need definitely has stayed high. To my surprise, it has not diminished.
A need that could grow more. The church is in a COVID red zone, meaning there's new restrictions to stop the spread, including the closure of non-essential businesses and the ending of dining in at restaurants. But still, Kenny, his team, and church clergy press on, bringing much-needed hope to this neighborhood. In Bensonhurst, Emily Druby, Currents News.
You can help make a difference by donating to the St. Athanasius Food Pantry online. Just go to givecentral.org/location/607/events. The parish asks that when you make your donation, you specify it is for the food pantry. There's a lot more news headed your way. Back on the trail again, President Trump campaigns for the first time since his coronavirus diagnosis. Plus, Hurricane Delta's devastating 1-2 punch for churches in one diocese in Louisiana that was trying to pick up the pieces after Hurricane Laura. And later, a recipe for success. The Brooklyn teen who's following his heart and his faith to make his dream of becoming a chef a reality.
Now you can help us put your faith in the news. The next time you capture a newsworthy event, send us your pictures or video. It's easy. Go to netny.tv/send us, and you may see your submission on Currents News.
I stand for the men and women who acted like they had some sense and some courage and changed this country by being men and women who stood for something.
You may recognize Tennessee State Representative John DeBerry for this passionate speech that went viral a few months ago, calling for an end to violent protests around the country. But now he is defending his stance on life. The lifelong Christian who represents Memphis believes he was removed from the Democratic ballot for the 2020 election by the party's executive committee because of his pro-life stance. Despite this, he says it won't stop him from running as an independent. Representative DeBerry joins us now, and you've been re-elected for office 13 consecutive times. Have your views changed at all in that time? And if not, why do you think you were ousted by your own party now?
Well, my views have never varied at all since the time I took the oath of office in 1995. Folks knew where I stood on abortion then. It was a contentious issue even 26 years ago. And I spoke very clearly and plainly and succinctly about what I believe. The same thing my father and mother taught me. My mother protested against abortion in the late 60s before it was approved in 73. My father protested against it as part of the civil rights movement of that day. And I have spoken against it, preached against it, stood against it my entire adult life. So my views didn't change. It is tragic and disturbing that the Democratic Party has moved in a direction to where they cannot tolerate what I believe and thousands of others believe when it comes to this issue, to the extent that they say that the tent is too small and we are unwelcome under the tent of the Democratic Party.
Yeah, you were one of several Democrats to send a letter to the platform committee of the Democratic National Convention urging them to change the abortion language in the party's platform. So do you think the party is excluding pro-lifers?
Oh, absolutely. They made it pretty evident that they will use smoke screens. Well, it's not just about this, but the billboards that have been placed up around Shelby County, the radio ads, the despicable language that has been used against me and my faith really seriously point to the fact that it's about pro-life. That's the issue that is driving them to exclude people like myself. And I can't help but say Christian people, because that's where I believe come from.
So is it possible anymore to be pro-life and still be a Democrat?
Well, there is an organization that has most certainly supported me. It's called Democrats for Life. I was glad to hear from them after this, because it let me know that there are people who are willing to put their party affiliation on the line in order to stand for life. I think that what's at test right now is whether or not the party bosses and the party elite from Washington and Nashville and other large cities around the country are going to open their eyes and ears to those of us who say we will not sacrifice our beliefs just to have a D behind our names. That's not the most important thing. The most important thing is to protect the life of the unborn, to stand for those who can't stand for themselves, and speak for those who, because of their place of residency, they reside in the womb of their mothers, which ought to be the safest place on earth for a child. But because of their place of residency, they're not given constitutional rights, and we stand for them.
All right, Tennessee State Representative John DeBerry, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you for having me today.
Election Day is 3 weeks from today, and for the first time since his coronavirus diagnosis, President Donald Trump is back on the campaign trail.
I went through it. Now they say I'm immune. I feel so powerful. I'll walk into that audience. I'll walk in there. I'll kiss everyone in that audience.
President Trump held a rally in Florida yesterday after his doctor said the president had tested negative for the coronavirus on consecutive days. Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden is in Florida today. Meanwhile, a group of prominent Christians has formed a political action committee to oppose President Trump. The Super PAC, which is called Not Our Faith, is rolling out six-figure TV and digital ads focusing on Christian voters, especially Catholic and evangelical voters who supported Trump in 2016. The ads urge Christians to break from Trump, saying they don't need Trump to save them. After refusing for weeks to answer questions about court packing, Joe Biden finally gave his position on it. The Democrat says he is not a fan of packing the court. What that means is if Amy Coney Barrett is confirmed and the Supreme Court gets a 6-3 conservative majority, progressive members of the Democratic Party have tossed around the idea of expanding the size of the high court to add more liberal justices if Biden gets elected. Both he and his running mate Kamala Harris refused to talk about it during their debates. 5 people have reportedly been arrested for tearing down a statue of Junipero Serra. Protesters in San Rafael, California cheered as the statue of the saint was toppled yesterday. It happened in front of the Church of St. Raphael. The 18th century Catholic priest founded 9 missions in California, but some believe he enslaved Native Americans. A diocese in Louisiana is picking up the pieces after yet another hurricane. Churches in Lake Charles, which were still rebuilding after Hurricane Laura, suffered a setback when Hurricane Delta blew through last week. Many were still covered in tarps, which were blown off, and the churches were soaked by some 15 inches of rain. Diocese officials believe recovery efforts have been set back by about 3 weeks. Meanwhile, some good news from hurricane recovery efforts. Power is being restored to some of the 750,000 people who lost their electricity during Delta. Katie Easter speaks with one resident from GLENMORA, Louisiana, whose troubles began when Hurricane Laura made landfall last month.
We were definitely prepared to be like it was for Laura. We were prepared for weeks.
Brittany Cloud says she was shocked Monday evening when she was able to turn her lights on.
Like, holy cow, we got light.
We first met the Cloud family days after Hurricane Laura. They were without electricity and running water for 13 days.
Once we're without power, we're without water. We do not have city water, we have water wells. Water wells rely on our power.
Hours before Delta made landfall, Cloud says they started preparing.
I have some Rubbermaid totes in my backyard, some of the really big ones, and I fill them up with water hose, and that's what we flush our toilets with.
Now Cloud worries a swollen Calcasieu River will flood her home.
Calcasieu River is right here behind my house. Within a couple days, it'll probably be closer to my house than it's ever been before. It'll probably be a record flood.
That was Katie Easter reporting. Utility companies say 12,000 workers from 18 states pitched in to restore power outages caused by Hurricane Delta. Still to come on Currents News, faith, family, and the quarantine. The perfect ingredients for one recent Xaverian high grad to indulge his passion for the culinary arts. And he's about to celebrate his 100th birthday, but this World War II vet got an early surprise that he should have gotten decades ago. Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstips@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number, 718-517-3122. We'll be right back. A recent grad from Xaverian High School who spent part of his senior year learning from home decided to use the quarantine as an opportunity to indulge his passion for cooking. And with his faith and family behind him, it was a recipe for success. Currents News' Jessica Easthope has this future chef's story from Bay Ridge.
With a dash of determination and a whole lot of Parmesan cheese, Nathan Berg's culinary career is heating up.
Let's get started. I would love to own a restaurant or multiple restaurants, take a managerial position, but start off in the kitchen.
Though the pandemic took some of the steam out of his senior year at Xaverian High School, Nathan said it added zest to his passion for cooking.
I've had a lot more time to experiment in the kitchen. I've also been able to cook for my family more and do a little bit more comprehensive meals each night. So I think I've done some of my best cooking during the pandemic. So now once you have your pasta and pasta water into the pan with the pancetta grease.
Born and raised in Bay Ridge, Nathan's love of being in the kitchen started early.
I've always loved to cook. I love to watch my mom cook, my grandmother cook. And I grew up in a predominantly Italian-American household, so it kind of came as second nature.
Having recently graduated, Nathan was lifted up by his school community, especially when it came to his food Instagram account called Manja My Dudes.
Teachers started following faculty members. People would tell me the next day in class, like, oh, guess what we had for dinner? What you made. You want about 2 to 3 tablespoons of salt in there.
And the food he makes is just as authentic as he is. I'm getting ready to make Nathan's soon-to-be famous spaghetti carbonara. When it comes to secret ingredients, he has a few, but you won't find any of them on a spice rack.
To be Catholic, I mean, I feel like it's all about sharing something from yourself and giving it to others. So I feel like that's also the basis of cooking and food in general. Even in the Bible, I love the food verses, like bread and wine and the loaves and fishes and all that.
Now Nathan is just beginning his freshman year at Cornell University, where he'll study hospitality.
Right now we are just warming up this olive oil.
Though his life's new menu will be constantly changing, Nathan's recipe for success will always be the original: faith, family, and food. Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
Just followed him on Instagram. Finally tonight, he's lived almost 100 years and only has one regret: not getting his high school diploma. So employees at a nursing home in Pennsylvania wanted to change that. They arranged for Albert Montella to finally graduate. You see, Montella was shipped out to war right before graduation. He came home and lived a full life despite not graduating. He'll be 100 years old in November, and his advice for us: love people and be nice. And that is Currents News. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us, because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.